The air buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Oliver sat beside Julian at a long table, a white linen cloth draped elegantly before them. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, making the silverware sparkle. Around them, happy faces beamed, caught up in the magic of the day. It was Liam and Chloe's wedding, a beautiful celebration filled with friends and family. Oliver felt a genuine warmth for the happy couple, seeing their bright smiles and loving glances. Yet beneath his own polite smile, a different kind of feeling stirred in his chest. Julian, just inches away, looked handsome in his suit, his dark hair catching the light. He chuckled at a joke from across the table, and Oliver watched the way his eyes crinkled at the corners. For months, a quiet understanding had grown between them, a friendship that felt like it was always just on the edge of becoming something more. Neither had spoken the words, but every shared look, every lingering touch when passing a salt shaker, hinted at a deeper connection. Today, surrounded by so many people, that unspoken feeling felt both magnified and utterly hidden. It was a thrilling secret tucked away in the open. The room was a kaleidoscope of colors, bridesmaids in soft blue, groomsmen in sharp gray, and guests in every shade of celebration. Everyone was focused on the joyous couple, oblivious to the silent dance happening between Oliver and Julian. Oliver's heart gave a little flutter, a tiny bird trapped in his ribs, whenever Julian leaned in to whisper something about the decorations or the slightly off-key band. He wondered if Julian felt it too, this mix of happiness for their friends and a quiet, yearning excitement for something else entirely. The wedding was a beautiful distraction, a perfect camouflage for the thrilling, almost painful, awareness that simmered between them. The reception flowed with happy noise. A DJ played upbeat songs, and a few brave souls were already dancing near the edge of the room. Oliver and Julian chatted easily with the others at their table, their conversation light and full of smiles. Oliver caught Julian's eye once, across the centerpiece of white roses, and felt that familiar spark, a silent message passing between them. He wondered if anyone else noticed the way their gazes held just a little longer than necessary. Probably not. Everyone was too busy celebrating Liam and Chloe. Then, the music faded. The happy chatter slowly died down, replaced by a ripple of anticipation. A microphone squeaked, and Liam's best man, Mark, stood up, clearing his throat. It was time for the speeches. Oliver straightened in his chair, ready to listen. These were always a highlight, full of funny stories and heartfelt wishes for the newlyweds. As Mark began to speak, telling a funny tale about Liam's childhood, a hush fell over the room. The bright energy of the party shifted into a focused quiet. Heads turned toward the speaker, smiles still on faces, but now tinged with thoughtful attention. Oliver glanced at Julian, who was also looking toward Mark, a small smile playing on his lips. In this moment of shared focus, Oliver felt a strange mix of calm and heightened awareness. All eyes were on the front of the room, on the speaker, on the happy couple. No one was looking at them. The thought made a thrill run down Oliver's spine. It was a perfect cloak, this collective attention. A perfect moment for secrets to hide. The room was still, save for Mark's voice, telling tales of friendship and love. Mark finished his speech with a heartfelt wish for Liam and Chloe. The room filled with warm applause, a wave of sound that washed over everyone. Oliver clapped along, smiling genuinely, his eyes on the happy couple at the head table. The noise was loud, a comforting blanket of sound. As the clapping began to fade, and before the next speaker could even be announced, Oliver felt it. A warm touch against his right hand, which rested casually on his lap, hidden by the long tablecloth. It wasn't a brush, but a definite, gentle press. His breath caught in his throat. He didn't move, didn't look down. He knew it was Julian. His heart, which had been beating steadily, suddenly gave a frantic thump. It felt like a small bird had taken flight inside his chest, wings beating against his ribs. Julian's fingers, warm and sure, slowly moved, finding their way between Oliver's own. It was a silent invitation, a bold question asked without a single word. Oliver felt a jolt of surprise, followed by a rush of pure, wild excitement. His mind raced. Was this really happening? Here? Now? In a room full of people, with everyone still buzzing from the last speech. He kept his eyes fixed on the front of the room, on the bride's glowing face, on the groom's happy grin. He pretended to be completely absorbed in the wedding, just like everyone else. But under the table, in the secret space between their chairs, Julian's hand was now firmly holding his. It was a daring move, a secret whispered in the loudest possible way. The quiet buzz of the room, as people settled from the applause, seemed to amplify the beating of Oliver's heart. He felt a delicious shiver run through him, a mix of fear and utter delight. Oliver's fingers, at first stiff with surprise, slowly relaxed. He let Julian's fingers weave between his, a silent dance under the tablecloth. Then Julian squeezed. It wasn't a hard squeeze, but a soft, warm pressure that spoke volumes. It was a gentle promise, a brave declaration in the middle of a room full of people. Oliver squeezed back, just a little, letting Julian know he understood. He felt it too. Their hands are now fully intertwined, a secret knot of fingers and palms. Oliver felt the warmth of Julian's skin, the slight roughness of his fingertips. It was such a small thing, this hidden touch, yet it felt monumental. His heart hammered against his ribs, a wild drumbeat of excitement. He could feel the pulse in his wrist, mirroring Julian's. He kept his gaze steady on the head table, nodding as if in deep thought about the happy couple. Inside, though, his mind was a whirlwind. This wasn't just a friendly touch. This was something new, something daring. It was a confession, whispered not with words, but with the silent language of touch. And it was happening right here, in front of everyone, yet completely invisible. The thrill of it was almost too much. The risk of being seen, the boldness of Julian's move, the delicious secrecy, it all combined into a powerful rush. Oliver felt a giddy lightness, a feeling like he could float right out of his chair. He glanced quickly at Julian, whose eyes were still fixed on the front of the room, a calm smile on his face. Julian looked perfectly relaxed, as if holding Oliver's hand under the table was the most normal thing in the world. This made Oliver's heart beat even faster. It was a shared secret, a hidden adventure, and it was just beginning. The feeling of Julian's hand in his was a warm anchor in a sea of faces. Oliver felt a dizzying mix of excitement and a tiny prickle of fear. It was a big secret, this hidden touch, unfolding right under everyone's noses. The thought made his stomach do a little flip. What if someone saw? What if the tablecloth shifted just so, or if a child crawled under the table to retrieve a dropped toy? He imagined Aunt Carol, with her sharp eyes, or even his own sister, sitting a few seats down. Would they notice the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his breath might be just a little too shallow? He tried to look relaxed, to mirror Julian's calm demeanor. He nodded at a comment from a guest across the table, forcing a natural smile, all while his fingers were tightly, secretly, woven with Julian's. This public secrecy was an electric current running through him. Every laugh from a nearby table, every clink of cutlery, every rustle of movement felt amplified. It was like being on a stage, playing a part, while a whole different, thrilling play was happening backstage, just for him and Julian. The adrenaline surged, making his skin tingle. It was a wild, almost naughty thrill, knowing they were sharing something so intimate, so bold, in such a public space. The speeches continued, a gentle drone of voices and stories. But for Oliver, the true story was unfolding beneath the table. It was a daring game, a silent dare, and he was all in. The fear was a small, sharp edge, but the excitement was a wide, warm wave, washing over him, making him feel alive in a way he hadn't before. This hidden confession, this unspoken yes to whatever Julian was asking, was intoxicating. The next speaker, Chloe's older sister, stepped up to the microphone. Oliver forced himself to focus, to really listen to her words about growing up with the bride. He kept his head slightly tilted, as if fully engaged, his gaze fixed on the wedding party. His face was a mask of polite interest, mirroring the expressions of everyone else at the table. Beside him, Julian also looked perfectly composed. His eyes were on the speaker, a gentle smile on his lips. He even chuckled softly at a childhood anecdote Chloe's sister shared. To anyone looking, they were just two guests enjoying the wedding, completely normal, completely separate. But underneath the table, their hands were a tightly linked secret. Oliver could feel the slight pressure of Julian's thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand, a small, tender movement that sent shivers through him. It was a silent message, a quiet reassurance that this was real, that they were truly connected. The contrast between their outward calm and the hidden intensity of their joined hands was intoxicating. It made the air around them feel thick with unspoken words, with desires that were both thrilling and terrifying. Every time someone at their table shifted or leaned closer, Oliver's heart gave a little lurch. He imagined the sudden shock if their secret was revealed, the stares, the whispers. But the fear was quickly swallowed by the sheer rush of it all. It was like they were sharing a private joke with the universe, a magnificent secret that no one else knew. They were playing a part, two actors on a grand stage, pretending nothing was happening, even though their hands, their hearts, were tightly linked in a way that felt brand new and incredibly exciting. The speech continued, a pleasant background noise to their thrilling, silent conversation. Chloe's sister finished her speech, drawing another round of appreciative applause. As the clatter of forks and murmurs of conversation started to pick up again, the bride's father stood, ready for his turn. The room settled once more, a quiet hum taking over as everyone prepared to listen. For Oliver, the shift in atmosphere was barely noticeable because his entire world had shrunk to the space beneath the table. With the start of the second speech, the feeling of their hands touching grew even stronger. It wasn't just a physical connection now. It felt like a silent conversation, a quiet promise exchanged without a single word. Julian's thumb continued its gentle circles, a steady, rhythmic comfort against Oliver's skin. Oliver found himself pressing back slightly, a small, unspoken affirmation. It was as if the longer their hands stayed linked, the more profound and certain the connection became. The noise of the room, the distant clatter from the kitchen, the soft laughter from another table, it all faded into a background hum. Oliver could hear the father of the bride speaking, his voice warm and loving, but the words floated past Oliver without truly sinking in. His focus was entirely on the warmth in his hand, on the secret woven between their fingers. It was a promise, he realized, not just of a moment, but of something deeper, something that had been waiting to bloom. This quiet, powerful promise in the midst of a noisy wedding felt incredibly special. It was brave and reckless, yet utterly tender. Oliver felt a wave of happiness, so pure it almost hurt. He knew, without a doubt, that this was more than just a fleeting touch. It was a beginning. The bride's father continued his speech, his voice a gentle hum in the background. Oliver, however, was lost in his own thoughts, his attention completely captured by the warmth and pressure of Julian's hand. He thought about how incredibly special this secret touch was. It wasn't just a simple gesture. It was a bold move, a quiet rebellion against the norms of the room, of their friendship. It felt thrilling, like standing on the edge of something wonderful and unknown. There was a delicious danger to it, too. What if someone at their table decided to bend down for a moment? What if a stray napkin fell, drawing attention to the hidden space beneath? The thought sent a jolt of nervous energy through him, but it only made the thrill stronger. This wasn't a safe, easy confession. It was brave and daring, a silent shout in a room full of whispers. Oliver imagined what it would be like if they weren't at a wedding, if they were alone. Would Julian have said something instead? Would Oliver have been brave enough to respond in words? But here, now, in this public space, the touch was even more powerful. It was a secret language only they understood, a shared adventure unfolding right under the noses of hundreds of people. The sheer audacity of it made him smile, a small, private smile that no one else would notice. He felt a deep sense of connection, a bond forming in the silence. This wasn't just about attraction. It was about trust, about taking a risk together. Julian had reached out, and Oliver had held on. It was a beautiful, dangerous, exhilarating dance. The father's speech wound down, but Oliver barely heard the final words. All he heard was the pounding of his own heart, echoing the quiet, powerful rhythm of Julian's hand in his. The bride's father finished his speech to another round of gentle applause. The room still held a focused quiet, waiting for the final speaker. Just as Oliver was getting lost in the dizzying mix of thrill and wonder, Julian moved. His fingers tightened around Oliver's, a deliberate, tender squeeze. It wasn't just a friendly gesture or a spontaneous moment that might be regretted later. This was a clear, certain message. The squeeze was soft but firm, letting Oliver know this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a sudden, unthinking grab. This was something real, something meant to be. It was Julian's way of saying, I meant it. This is important. Oliver felt a profound sense of relief wash over him, mixing with the adrenaline already coursing through his veins. Any lingering doubt he might have had, any thought that Julian might pull his hand away, vanished. He squeezed back, a silent answer to Julian's unspoken question. Yes, this was real. Yes, this felt right. The connection between their hands deepened, becoming a steady, comforting presence. It was more than just skin touching skin. It was two souls reaching out, finding each other in the most unexpected and public of places. Oliver glanced subtly at Julian. Julian's gaze was still fixed on the head table, a thoughtful expression on his face. But Oliver could feel the warmth, the life, in Julian's hand. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that Julian was fully present in this secret moment, just as he was. It was a beautiful, quiet promise, sealed under a white tablecloth, while the world around them celebrated a different kind of love. This was their love in its own thrilling, hidden beginning. Finally, Liam stood up, a little shyly, to give the groom's speech. He thanked everyone, told a sweet story about Chloe, and raised a toast to their future. His voice was warm and happy, and the room listened with soft smiles. As he finished, the entire room burst into a thunderous wave of applause. It was loud, joyous, and full of heartfelt celebration for the newlyweds. Oliver clapped along with everyone else, his hands rising and falling in perfect rhythm. His face was bright, his smile wide and sincere, cheering for his friends. But under the table, his hand remained firmly linked with Julian's. The loud noise of the applause was like a protective shield, hiding their secret even more effectively. In the joyful chaos, no one would notice anything out of place. He felt Julian's fingers tighten around his again, a subtle squeeze that confirmed they were still in this together. Neither of them let go. It was a silent agreement, a quiet defiance in the face of all the noise and people. The thrill intensified, a delicious rush of adrenaline. It felt daring, almost reckless, to hold on during such a public moment. But it also felt deeply right, like the most natural thing in the world. Oliver looked at Julian, whose eyes were sparkling as he clapped. Julian met Oliver's gaze for a fleeting moment, a quick, shared look that held a universe of understanding. In that split second, Oliver saw a reflection of his own excitement and a hint of mischief in Julian's eyes. It was a silent confession, a playful challenge, a promise of what was to come. The applause continued to roar around them, a beautiful, noisy backdrop to their perfectly still, perfectly secret, intertwined hands. The applause for Liam's speech swelled, then began its slow fade. As the clapping softened, and before the next round of cheerful chatter could fully begin, Oliver turned his head just a fraction. His eyes met Julian's. It was a quick, hidden glance, lasting only a heartbeat, but in that moment, everything was said. Julian's eyes, usually so calm, held a mischievous spark, a hint of triumphant joy. They were bright with shared excitement, a silent question and a clear answer all rolled into one. Oliver felt his own gaze reflect that same feeling, a rush of pure understanding passing between them. There was no need for words, no need for grand gestures. This brief, secret look was more powerful than any spoken confession. It said, yes, this is real. It said, I feel it too. It said, this is our secret, and it's wonderful. And most importantly, it said what happens next. The question hung in the air between them, unspoken but perfectly clear. Oliver's heart thrummed with the anticipation of it all. The world outside their secret bubble was still filled with the lingering sounds of celebration. But in that tiny space, a new story was beginning to unfold. The hidden glance was like a spark, igniting all the unspoken feelings that had simmered between them for months. It was a bold acknowledgement of their connection, made even more thrilling by its secrecy. Oliver felt a wave of warmth spread through him, from his intertwined fingers all the way to his smiling eyes. This was the wild thrill of a hidden confession, finally out in the open, just for them. The roar of applause for the groom slowly, finally, died down. The air filled again with the cheerful hum of conversation, the clinking of cutlery, and the distant beat of music as the DJ started a new song. It was time for everyone to return to the party, to stand, to mingle, to dance. Slowly, carefully, Julian's fingers began to unlace from Oliver's. It was a gentle, unhurried separation, a soft parting of hands that had been so tightly woven. Oliver felt a small pang of something, a reluctance to let go, but he knew this public moment of secrecy had to end. He watched, without looking down, as their fingers slipped apart one by one. The warmth of Julian's palm left his, a lingering ghost of touch on his skin. Their hands rested once more on their own laps, looking perfectly innocent, perfectly separate. To anyone observing, they were just two friends, ready to enjoy the rest of the wedding. But the magic of the moment, the thrill of their shared secret, didn't disappear with the separation of their hands. It lingered, a warm glow in Oliver's chest. He could still feel the phantom pressure of Julian's fingers, the memory of their intertwined hands. It was a powerful echo, a silent reminder of the bold confession and the unspoken promises exchanged beneath the table. The adrenaline that had pumped through him during the speeches now settled into a deep, happy hum. The separation was just a temporary pause, he knew. The secret was out, at least between them, and the world felt brighter, full of exciting new possibilities. He took a slow, deep breath, a small smile playing on his lips. Even after their hands had parted, the ghost of Julian's touch stayed with Oliver. It was a warm, tingling feeling that settled deep in his palm, a secret imprint that no one else could see or feel. The feeling of their connected hands, the memory of that thrilling squeeze, became a precious secret tucked away safe in his heart. It was a memory of a daring confession, made not in hushed tones, but in plain sight, hidden only by a tablecloth in a room full of happy, distracted guests. Oliver looked across the table at Julian, who was now laughing at a story someone else was telling. Julian caught his eye and offered a small, knowing smile, a flicker of that shared mischief. It was a silent nod to their secret, a quiet promise that this moment wouldn't be forgotten. Oliver smiled back, a genuine, easy smile that reached his eyes. The wedding reception roared back to life, the music louder, the chatter more boisterous. People started to move around, some heading to the dance floor, others to the bar. Oliver felt lighter, happier, filled with a quiet joy that had nothing to do with the wedding itself and everything to do with the boy sitting beside him. This was more than just a memory. It was a turning point. The secret confession, the daring touch, had changed something between them forever. It was a thrilling beginning, a story that had just started to unfold. Oliver knew he would carry the feeling of Julian's hand in his, a sweet and wild secret, long after the last dance had ended and the wedding guest had gone home. It was a memory of pure adrenaline and bold affection, a hidden promise whispered in the heart of a crowd.